Okay, so today, well, thank you for all of you who came to the Summer Design It workshops. For those of you who came and didn't come, I'm going to go over the same content that I covered today, except a little bit more in detail and with step by step with my screen on hand right here so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So today we're going to go over a lot on what Photoshop is. For example, we're going to first go more general, for example, on fonts, and then talk about what Photoshop is used for, how to set up a document, the tools you can use in Photoshop, how to make a cutout, and as well as simple graphics and maybe some more. So your fonts are really important. They bring your message to, or how you're trying to deliver your message to whoever you're designing for. And everyone who sees your design judges your information by your fonts. So different fonts can be more professional or more classy. It really depends on what you're trying to go for. And these are the fonts I really like to use, and really each has its own place. The only tip I have for fonts is to really try looking for something that's really clean and slick and doesn't look too unprofessional if you're going for professional, and really matches the message you want to give out. For example, I would say never to use Calibri or Times New Roman in graphics design, or even and definitely not Comic Sans, because these fonts, although they're good for things such as reports or Word documents, for graphics design they don't bring really the slickness, the really cool type of clean font that you need for graphics design. So Photoshop is really an amazing program that has a lot of capabilities. So Photoshop is really good for the first few things on this list. So it's really good for cutting out something. So what this means is if you have a picture and you're trying to cut out the background and make the background transparent, it's really easy to do that. It's also possible you would use Photoshop for things such as face swaps, because it's so good at cutting out things and mixing images together. So on the same note, it's really good at image manipulation. So if you want to blend two images together or try making your face look a little bit better by moving things around or removing pimples or that type of thing, Photoshop's really good for that. It has some capability to do basic color correction and some effects. However, I'd recommend things using Lightroom for if you want to edit pictures. And it's also really capable of basic graphics design. However, I'd recommend things such as InDesign and Illustrator to fully learn good graphics design. However, Photoshop does have that capability, and it's really a diverse piece of software you can use for a lot of instances. So for example, Photoshop, if you go to Verde a lot, you love Verde, and you can use Photoshop to take out the background, so to make it transparent. You can put it anywhere. If you put this all over in this background, the outside would not show. Also, you can move this transparent image into another image and try blending it to create an interesting effect. For example, if you wanted to create an advertisement that Verde has no artificial ingredients, you could just put it somewhere in the forest. Yeah. And also you can do it for some basic graphics design, as I said, because I'm personally so familiar with Photoshop. I designed all my graphics design in there. For example, when I ran for State Secretary Treasurer in FBLA, I designed my pins and my whole poster board all using Photoshop instead of something like InDesign or Illustrator. You can also design T-shirts. In this case, it's good for Photoshop's good for designing T-shirts because it's really easy to just get a quick representation of what you're making and manipulate things really quickly. It's also really good for creating things such as profile pictures and club logos, profile pictures, as well as face swaps, as I said, and putting people under a lot of money, blending pictures, and making really cool things. So as for actually starting Photoshop, the setup is kind of intimidating. So once you open up Photoshop, this is what pops up, and there's a lot to take in. However, like after you get really familiar with the program, it's a lot easier to use. So first, to open up a new document, you have to go press File and New, and there are a lot of settings here that pop up that I'll go into a tiny bit later that you can set, and your document will pop up. If you want to open up a document, it's also pretty simple. You go to File, Open, and you choose your file, you open it up, and it will automatically set itself to the size and type of and the settings of your document. So here's a little bit of a run through. So, okay. So, for example, if you want to start a project, you'd go to File, New, and here, this thing pops up. So as for each setting, I'll go through each one. So for a name you can go to name it whatever you want. So for example, I'll name it DesignIt. And here are a lot of Photoshop presets. So Photoshop has a default size. You could go to 8.5 by 11, US paper, international paper, photo, or you could go set your own. For example, I always like setting in pixels, and I always go first generally in the square. And okay, so now I'm going to go more into resolution. So what resolution is basically what you think. So how many pixels per inch there are. So in this case, since it's set to pixels, it will always be set to 1000 by 1000. However, for example, if I set it to inches, it means that it would have 300 pixels per inch, which means that the document would be, so if I set this higher, it would actually be a bigger image, and if I set it lower, it'd be smaller. But right now I just want 1000 by 1000. Okay, and then as for color mode, so color mode, you have all of these, and really the three you probably will use are grayscale, RGB, and CMYK, and pretty much in the most general situation, you probably always want to stick with RGB, but I'm going to go more in detail right now on what the other options are. So grayscale is for something like black and white, and how that's going to look for editing things that are black and white. It's solely black and white, and you won't be able to see any color. RGB is for any screen graphics. For example, if you're designing a poster that's going onto Facebook and you want to show, or Tumblr or something like that, you would always use RGB color because that's how screen displays work. And if you're printing something, you probably want CMYK, so it's more accurate. So what you're seeing is more accurate to what actually prints out, because the colors used to display your screen as well as print documents are a little bit different and might turn out a little bit different depending on how you design it. So once you're done with all of your settings, you press OK, and your thing pops up, and there you go. So if you want to close your document right here, you can press the X here. If you want to open up another one, open up a preset image, you can go File, Open. For example, if you're in your desktop, you can go to DesignIt Demos, you can go to Setup, open something, and it will automatically pop up. So the thing we just made was here, and the image we just opened is here. So, okay, let's go back. Okay, next is your tools. So your whole toolbar should be on the very left of your screen on Photoshop, and really this is where this is what you use to change everything. And here are all the tools displayed in a grid. And although most people don't use all of these tools when they use Photoshop, and you don't need to know all of them. You only need to know the essentials. For example, the tools I've used are probably this, and the tools I use for most of the time are probably this. So really, you don't have to know all the tools. You only have to know the really essential ones that people use every time they use Photoshop. There's also the color picker. So on the very bottom left, you should see this type of thing, and here you can select colors. So for people who haven't used this color dialog, you can set numbers on the very right, depending on what you want. Also, if you're more physical, you can drag this around for the the hue, as well as drag it up or down for the brightness or the darkness of, or the shade of the color. And this is really, you really need to familiarize yourself with how to use this. So again, let's go through a demo. So for example, so each tool has its own capabilities. So first things first, whenever you start any background, any document, you can see right here that there's layers, and here there's a layer, and it always opens up with something that's locked. So what you want to do is double click it, and you'll see that lock go away. For example, you see this lock, double click it, okay, it will go away. So that makes it editable. Now I'm going to go into the concept of layers. So layers is like putting something on top of another. If you have a lot of papers on your desk and you put one on top of another, it covers it. And really, that's the concept of layers, trying to put in order your images as well as different types of objects, that type of thing. So for example, if I want to draw something on PewDiePie, for example, black out his face, that's above, that layer should be above PewDiePie. So if I move this layer under, then it's under PewDiePie. So really, layers are just how you position everything above and below each other to make it look okay. So I'm going to delete it by pressing delete. So now I'm going to go over all the tools. Since you've unlocked the layer, now you can use all the tools to do different types of things. For example, the move tool is really self-explanatory here. So it's used to move things around. So for example, if you select, click and hold, you can move everything around. Control Z to go back. Here, here's selection. So if you want to select something, for example, his face, you can do that. And really, if you select something, the main thing to know is press Control D to deselect it. And selections are really useful for things such as cutouts. And let me tangent off a little bit. So for a lot of these tools, you can see a little black triangle at the very bottom right. To access these tools, you just need to hold down your click, and then this menu will pop up, and you can choose a lot more. For example, this. But let's go more into other tools. So the lasso tool is also a selection tool. However, you have a little bit more freedom, so you can just draw whatever you want. And there's your selection. Control D. Now the magic wand tool. Well, first, if you open up Photoshop for the first time, you'll see the quick selection tool, which is a tool that makes you select a specific color. Example that, and it just basically selects all the similar colors around it. If you hold down, click on the icon and go to Magic Wand tool, you can also select. You can also do the same thing. However, you have a little bit more control. Right here is the tolerance. So what tolerance is how willing the Magic Wand tool is to selecting colors near the one you select. So for example, with a tolerance of 5, I'll select this much. However, with a tolerance of, say, 50, deselect, Control D, and I'll select a lot more of the same color. So, going into these settings, you don't need to worry about anti-alias and sample all layers right now. The only one you can worry about is contiguous. So basically, in English, contiguous means adjacent to or next to. So if this is checked, it means that it will only select colors that are next to it that have similar colors. However, if I uncheck this, it will select it in the whole layer and select similar colors in the whole layer. For example, this I selected it around here. It's a pretty bright color, so we'll select pretty much all the bright similar colors inside the whole document. Control D to deselect. Okay, so crop tool you don't need to learn right now. And okay, next one is the brush tool. So the brush tool here is pretty self-explanatory. If you use Microsoft Paint or something, you can draw whatever you want. For example, I can draw all over, and it's really your brush. As for settings, you don't need to mess with these that much. The one you can mess with is this one. So for size, you can drag it down and up to make sure. So for example, if it's a 30 pixel size, it will be a smaller brush. If it's a 158, it's a little bigger. And also you can change your brush type. For example, right now it's more of a softer brush. However, if you go to a harder brush, you can see that there's less. It's a little bit less blurry. It really depends on what you're going for. So undo. Okay, now the clone stamp tool. So let me change this to a little bit smaller. So the clone stamp tool is really useful for things such as face swaps or image manipulation. So if you click this wheel, if that doesn't pop up, if you can't find that, you go to Window, Navigator. So and then use this to zoom in, this to move around. You can, and then you select the stamp tool in this layer. You basically what you can do is you can hold Alt, and you'll see this pop up. Click somewhere, and then basically you'll see a brush. And what it does is it copies pixels from where you clicked, and then you can do whatever you want with them. And it's really useful for changing things up. For example, if you want to move this around and cover things up. There we go. There. Yeah. So it's really useful for that type of thing, and really useful for face swaps or changing things up or removing imperfections on the face. Skip the art history brush. Art history brush and history brush tool. Okay, so the eraser is pretty self-explanatory. If you use MS Word, not MS Word, MS Paint, it's the same thing. You can erase whatever you want. And also change the brush type. Next one is fill, and it's also pretty self-explanatory. It fills. The next one, you can skip all these. Next one that's important is the type tool. So if you click the type tool, this will pop up, and you can type whatever you want. And basically, how text goes is it's a type of vector. So it's a text layer, so it will be above your layer, and you can move it around, but it will automatically put itself in a new layer for you. And if you select the text tool, you can change whatever you want. For example, if you want to change the font or change the color, there you go. And also, this is the last tool you need. So right here, if you hold down the drop down menu, you'll have a lot of different types of polygons that are really useful for things such as graphics design. So you can create rectangles, rounded rectangles, ellipses, and polygons, lines, that type of thing. And you can always set the settings on the top and mess with those in your own with whatever you want. However, if you get too messed up, all you need to do is right click, reset tool, and we'll go back to the original settings. And then here's the color picker. So as for the color picker, you just need to click on one of these, this one or this one. So usually the color that's used is the top one. So you go here, you can go to whatever color you want. I'll just get light blue. Yep. And if I go and use the brush tool on this layer, I can paint over. Okay, so those are your tools, and you can already do quite a lot with that. For example, you could mess around with PewDiePie's face and draw all over him, that type of thing. However, there's a few more things on how to use Photoshop. So next is color correction. So as for color correction, it's, for example, if you have an image and you want to correct it to make it look a little bit sharper, you can use really simple things such as levels, curves, and hue and saturation to make sure that the image pops. And what you're trying to go for whenever you edit images is you're trying to get the crispest image while making sure that it doesn't look fake. So it has to be as contrasted or as attractive as possible, while still maintaining realisticness. Yeah. Okay. Also, you can also do types of effects such as this, where you change the whole picture into one color. So back to Photoshop. Okay, I messed this up a lot. So for so new thing. So if you want to go back in actions, you can always you can go to Window and History, and basically what history is it saves all your different types of actions, and you can go back to a limited amount. For example, if I want to go back 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, exactly. So you can go back in time and see what you make. So let's go back to the very original picture. So again, it's locked, so double click, OK, go to the navigator, zoom out a little bit, fix what we're seeing, close that. Okay, so now as for basic color correction, so what you want to do is select your layer, image, adjustments, and levels is probably the most useful right now. So what levels is you can control the midtones and the highlights and the shadows in your picture, and really what this is that you can control the bright parts of your picture, the dark parts of your picture, and those colors in the middle. So what you always want when you're trying to edit a picture is to make sure it's contrasted enough, but not too contrasted or too bright or too dark. So this would make it a little bit washed out. However, this makes it a little bit clearer, but also makes his face a tiny bit darker. So to fix that, we can mess with these a tiny bit. There we go. Move this a little bit. Okay. So this is what happens after levels. So if you want to see what you just did, you can just keep pressing Control Z. So before, Control Z after, Control Z before, after, and you can really see the difference in that sense. So after editing your image, it looks a little bit better. However, you can I want to show you another type of effect. So image adjustments, hue and saturation. So this is really useful for changing types of colors. So you can move this left and change the skin color, move this right, change it. It's also good for graphics. For example, if you have something like a blue swirl, you can change it into red by using this hue, or and you can also change the saturation. However, I recommend not dragging it all the way. Also, lightness. Okay, and then for cool effects, you can use colorize. So basically what colorize does is it colorizes the whole layer into one type of color and shades of that color. And you can mess with these, make it darker, make it more saturated, change the color into the effect you want. Okay, back there. Okay. Oh, I'm getting tired. Cutouts. Okay, so Photoshop is really good for making cutouts and that type of thing. So for example, if you have an image that has a white background, it's really annoying and really hard to work with. And whenever you're putting it into graphics design, it always looks unprofessional. And you also not always want to have a white background. So what you can do with Photoshop is cut it out and make sure that it's really clean and you can put it in any type of background. And once you cut it out, you have a lot more flexibility in graphics design. So you can put it in whatever type of setting you want, edit it a tiny bit, and make sure it blends in. Okay. So let's go to Photoshop. Close this. Close this. Okay, so we're going to open up this iced document. Okay, so it's locked again, double click, okay. And basically for the most basic, for this type of picture, since the background is all white, I want to use the magic wand tool. And right now the tolerance is a little high, so it's selecting a lot more than I want. So I press Control D to deselect, and I'm gonna mess around until it works. So let's put the tolerance at 30, see if that works. Nope. 10, see if that works. Nope. 5, see if that works. Nope. Up, contiguous. Make sure it's contiguous. 5. Up, there we go. So once you have selected something you really like, you can delete it, or there's other options. So while you're still in this, you can right click and you'll have all these pop up. Layer via copy makes this an extra layer. So for example, if I turn off the visibility of this, it'll just basically cut it out. Let's go back. Layer via cut. is kind of like cutting and pasting. So this is the layer I just cut out. Okay. Okay, so there are other. So this is the quickest way. You can also use the quick selection tool to select your heart's desire, and there are other selection tools that are useful for other types of purposes. For example, if you want to delete straight, you can use this. You can also use an elliptical marquee to delete, and also you can use things such as a lasso tool, polygonal lasso tool, and magnetic lasso tool. So what the lasso tool is, as I already showed you, you could draw whatever you want and select. And another thing is the polygonal lasso tool is basically you can draw it, click, 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 and making polygons with that. Magnetic lasso tool is a tiny bit different. Basically what it is if you click, it basically snaps to all the details of the image, and sometimes it's really useful. The only thing is that it sometimes pops to the wrong place, for example there. When that happens, you just press backspace to go back a point, or escape to escape this whole thing like completely. So another thing for selection, so if you're selecting something and you want to select, instead of this iced tea, you want to select the thing around outside of the box, all you need to go to is go to select, inverse, and you'll select the thing around it. Also for selecting things, if you select one thing and you want to select a tiny bit more, you just need to hold shift while selecting, select it. If you want to subtract something from it, you hold alt, you can decrease your selection, that type of thing. And selections are really useful. So right now I'm just probably going to go for fast, there, and voila. And if you want to cut out more cleanly and while still seeing like what you're cleaning up, I recommend just putting a layer underneath, painting it in with some color, and you'll be able to see all the little imperfections, for example there. So for what I would do would be, for that top right corner, is I would zoom in a little bit and then use the polygonal lasso tool to select this, delete it. Oh, my bad, wrong layer. Delete. There we go. Okay. And ta-da! There we go. There's a cutout image. And so basically what you want to do is, if you want this image, you can save it and save it as different types of things. So whenever you're saving, a PSD file is basically something that's editable. So this right now is a PSD file with its layers and its effects, and you can edit it and open it back up in Photoshop whenever you want. However, if you want other things, for example, for most pictures you probably want JPEG, and as for most transparent pictures with transparency, you want PNG. So I would save this as a PNG. Sure, save. Sure. And then there we go. Then we've saved this image as a PNG, and you can put it anywhere you want. Okay. So now going more into graphics. So Photoshop is really good for basic image manipulation, and sometimes this is really useful for different types of graphics you want to make. So for example, you can put it in a background as well as put some effects to make it look really, really nice. So I'm actually going to show you a demo of how to make this. So once we have this, basically I want to open up another image. So here's my ground. So unlock it. And then if I want to drag it, I select the layer, I drag it, and there we go. Are you sure you want to convert this? Okay. And right now I have my T. So if I want to change, it's a little bit too big right now for my liking. So what I want to do is press Control T, or you could go to Edit, Free Transform, and then scale it down, put it up a little bit, move it to the right place. So it looks okay right now. And I think the colors aren't matching a little bit, so I want to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, change it a little bit. There we go. So before, after, it's a subtle change, but it makes a big difference. So what I want to do is I want to make this look real, look pretty legit in this type of background. So what I want to do is give it depth. So right now I see this leaf right here, and I think that it'd be really good to put this leaf. It would make a lot of sense if this leaf was actually going over the glass instead of under the glass. So if I want to do that, I make it easier by making this invisible. Then what I would do would be to use the polygonal lasso tool. So, oh god, okay. Polygonal lasso tool. Select slowly the leaf. And what I would do from here, right click layer via copy. Oh, wrong layer. Okay, so you have to select the layer you're trying to copy, right click, layer via copy, and then drag this leaf above and make this visible again. So what I just did was make the little leaf a little bit more visible on top, and it looks a little bit weird, so I'm gonna move it up, move the glass a little bit to fit it, and there we go. Okay, and all these images will be in a link on the very bottom of this YouTube video. Okay, so once this happens, you have a little bit more depth and it looks a tiny bit more real. However, I think the shading is a tiny bit off. So what I would do is add a layer, go to brushes, select this type of brush, and then change my brush color to a little bit darker. Maybe make a little bit bigger brush, and then mess with these settings. So opacity is pretty much how transparent you want it. So if it's 100% opacity, it's really opaque and you can't see through it. If you go down, the more transparent it is. So I probably want to go to somewhere like 32 or something. Yeah, okay. So if I want to add, so basically what I want to do to make it blend in is to add a shadow on the bottom. Just draw to what I think looks right. So this is a little bit thinner, and then go a little bit less. Change the opacity. Oh, that didn't turn out well. So if that happens, eraser, also lighter opacity. Change it to a little bit bigger brush. Erase it. You go back to brushes. Probably want this. Okay, and then slowly work your way to making it look right. Okay, I guess that looks pretty good. Okay, so now it kind of looks blended and there's a shadow. However, I want to make it look like what I have right here. So what I'm going to do is first go to the text tool, go change it to, say there, go to Langdon, Heist T, and maybe a little smaller. 30. Perfect. Okay. There we go. There we go. Control T. Change that a little bit. There. Okay. So now you have all these layers, and you're pretty much set for what you want to do. So to make the effect that's right here with all the blue, basically what you need to do is go to the ground layer. You get the select tool. Select the sides, hold shift, select, hold shift, select. And what I did was go to select, modify, feather, and you can change the settings. So what feathering is how soft your selection will be. So if the feathering is high, it will be a lot softer around the edges. However, if it's 0, then it's really a sharp edge. So I probably want 100, that's good. And right now my selection should be right now, it should be more feathered. And now to change it, just need to go to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, how we want to colorize it. So once I press Colorize, I can move this around. I want a little bit bluer. There we go. Okay. So now it's a little bit bluer around the sides and it looks kind of cool. So as for the text effect, what I did was go here. Okay. So go here. I right-clicked on this little square. Select pixels. This is a little bit advanced. And then since I already selected the pixels, I made this invisible. Went to this layer, and then went to Image, Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and increased the saturation, changed up the colors and brightness, and then deselect it. And that's how you create that type of effect. So it's a little bit harder, so for beginners, I don't recommend you try this too soon until you're more familiar with the other types of tools and that type of thing. But this is really showing the capability of what Photoshop can do. So as for more projects, there are more things you can do with Photoshop that are really cool. For example, I have a lot of things that I'm just going to show you some before and afters. So as for more, for example, if you have 1/6 in the Hunger Games, you can try mixing the Hunger Games logo into the whole of the 6. For face swapping, so let's open all these up. Okay, so as for face swapping, if you start out with some picture like this, Jeremy and I, pretty happy, and you move some stuff around. For example, you select my face, and you want to, for example, you have my face, you drag it on, you mix it a tiny bit, erase the sides to make it a little bit more, and change the hue saturation to make it match. Then there we go, there's a face swap, and it looks really creepy right here. Yeah. You can also do things such as fix-ups. So by using the stamp tool, it's really powerful. For example, if you start up, you can see right here, this is a lot of pimples. It's really into puberty. However, once you use your stamp tool, and you can really try slowly fixing up things and covering up all the little imperfections on your face. See right there, before, after. It really makes a difference, and after a lot of fix up and a lot of time, you can make your face go pretty well and pretty clean. So this is the after I fix up this face. So whenever you have something such as a prom picture and you want to fix it up, you can use Photoshop. So there you go, another weapon for you. Okay, so this would be for so if you have any questions, make sure you contact me and Summer Design It, which the contact info will be at the very end of this presentation. So contact us at summerdesignit@gmail.com. And graphics design is a lot about practice, a lot about having people critique you. So really having someone there who knows Photoshop or knows any other Adobe product to help you alongside, or following YouTube tutorials is a really good way to learn. I hope I wasn't too confusing today, and I hope you aren't sleeping on your keyboard right now. So thanks for watching.